No, I didn't get
My
it.
cousin got hit on the head with an anchor, and after that, he only swam in a circle.
No, guys, you're not following me.
From hardcover to the big screens, DreamWorks The Bad Guys is an animated movie about a criminal group of anthropomorphic animals who decide to become model citizens after they get caught during a heist. As expected, The Bad Guys movie was an instant fan favorite, with its distinctive animation style and a refreshing take on the comedy heist genre. As you watch the ragtag group of animals that have no business being together, you may get pulled into the black hole of this cinematic masterpiece. Blinded by everything going on in this universe, the average watcher might miss a lot of things skillfully hidden by the genius animators, which is why we've made this video. We will be taking a look at the 9 things you didn't see while watching DreamWorks The Bad Guys. If you'd like to see more videos on animated movies and TV shows, then you should subscribe to the channel and like this video.
By the power vested in me, it is a pleasure to grant the bad guys a full stop.
For as long as we can remember, animators have drawn inspiration from children's books, and DreamWorks struck gold when they decided to base the next IP on a comic book from an Australian author named Aaron Blabley. Aaron's The Bad Guys follows the adventures of Mr. Wolf and his team of animals as they try to do good for a change. Even though they don't always save the day, it's always fun to watch them go against their nature as bad guys. DreamWorks doesn't just copy the book, it elevates the source material to newer heights with an intriguing plot that revolves around Mr. Wolf and his crew discovering what it means to be adored.
You did a good thing. For me.
Don't be ridiculous. I just put your needs before my own.
Metaphors are a great way to pass subliminal messages to the audience, and if you weren't paying attention, you might have missed the movie's clever use of metaphor to explain everything going on. As the movie progresses, we see Professor Marmalade force Mr. Wolf and the rest of the gang to wear animal onesies. Of all the onesies of existence, Wolf gets the sheep onesie, which is an obvious reference to the phrase "a wolf in sheep's clothing." This phrase does a good guy of framing the whole movie because Wolf is a bad guy pretending or trying to be good. By the end of the movie, we realize that this phrase can also be used figuratively to describe Professor Marmalade since he pretended to be good, but he was a bad guy all along.
We gotta split up. Webs, you feel like a girl's trip? Yes.
Even though we might not get an origin story of all the main protagonists as the bad guys, the movie does a great job of giving us tidbits about the characters later on in the movie. In the shot, we see Mr. Shark's rap sheet, which gives us more details on the large sea carnivore. It is revealed that Shark also goes by the alias Jaws, like the Jaws franchise, which follows a great white shark as it attacks several people in specific areas of the US and the Bahamas. They even state that Mr. Shark resides in popular tourist destinations, which confirms that it's a cheeky detail added in the movie to reference Universal's horror franchise.
We're supposed to save them, not eat them?
Well, I'd say they've gone to a better place.
This might sound odd since the animation style for The Bad Guys doesn't look bad at all, but taking a closer look at the movie reveals some ingenious ways Universal Studios cut costs for the movie. For example, the 2D elements of the movie aren't just there because it improves the animation. It also does wonders to save on cost, unlike 3D computer-generated characters. They didn't stop there though. There are also on several instances in the movie where they cut costs, like how they drove around the same location in the car chase. Speaking of the car chase, all the cop cars have the same number printed on the back of their cars, which is a dead giveaway that they didn't want to spend time on that tiny detail. According to the reports, Universal Studios saved roughly $7 million, which was then spent on other areas like marketing.
Good. It was genius. Not only did I foil the pig.
From the beginning of the movie, it is made clear that Mr. Wolf is the de facto leader of the bad guys. From the way he carries himself to the ability to rally the team together, there is no doubt that the big bad wolf is the leader of the pack. Since Mr. Wolf is the leader of the bad guys, some would argue that he should be the oldest. But as it turns out, Mr. Snake has beaten him by several years. In the scene where Mr. Snake gets his mugshot taken, we can confirm that he was born on the 2nd of July, 1965, making him 57 years old at the point in the movie. Meanwhile, the trailers for The Bad Guys also gives us a peek at Mr. Wolf's date of birth, which is shown as October 19th, 1991. With a 26-year age difference, one might wonder why Mr. Snake chooses to follow Mr. Wolf.
The worst one of us. The most selfish,
spiteful,
Terrible, sneaky,
dishonest,
insensitive,
manipulative.
snake.
Ever since Into the Spider-Verse did wonders at the box office, animation studios all around the world took it as a sign to experiment more with their animation style. Instead of just sticking to the same old formula they've been using for years. After watching the first few minutes of The Bad Guys, you notice that the movie uses an interesting animation style that makes it stand out from the other animated movies released in 2022. The animation team revealed that they took inspo from the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and we're glad they did. The Bad Guys animation style utilizes the latest CG technology to deliver a crisp mixture of 3D and 2D that appeals to both the children and adults. The film's director, Pierre, claims that it was all possible due to DreamWorks' willingness to disrupt the animation industry, which has leaned heavily into CG animation.
Please join me in welcoming to the stage
We don't have 5 minutes.
Professor Marmalade.
DreamWorks The Bad Guys is a heist film that never forgets its roots, as we see the character initiate several attempts to steal throughout its runtime. During the first few minutes of the movie, we get a scene where Mr. Wolf and Mr. Snake enjoy a cup of coffee at a cafe before proceeding to rob a bank. To some, the scene may look mundane, but to those who love the classic Quentin Tarantino movies, they would be in for delight when they realize that the scene mirrors a movie from 1994's Pulp Fiction. Like in both movies, the two characters take their coffee and have an idle conversation about something before starting the robbery. The only difference between the two scenes being that in Pulp Fiction, they brought out guns and robbed the diner, while in The Bad Guys, they took it to the bank.
Tax evasion.
Heist, mail fraud.
Heists, you say? Well, that's kind of our specialty.
Any heist film worth its salt would have several piles of cash just waiting for someone daring enough to steal it, and The Bad Guys do not disappoint. Even though there are a lot of scenes with cash floating around the place, we don't really get a close-up of the money until later on in the movie. When we finally get a look at the $100 bills, we see an unfamiliar face sitting pretty in the spot where we should expect Benjamin Franklin. As it turns out, the face we see on the $100 bills in The Bad Guys belongs to Margie Cohen, who is the president of animation at DreamWorks. We don't know if it was an inside joke of the company, but it is still a fun detail that doesn't take away from the movie.
No! All our stuff?
Pierre is a French animator who is tasked with bringing The Bad Guys to life, and it goes without saying he did a great job. Even though it was his directorial debut, at no point in the movie does it look like it was made by an amateur. To mark his entry into the big leagues, he put graffiti that spells out his name in a shot during the car scene chase. The graffiti only appears in a quick shot that doesn't impact the movie in any way, but it's still nice to spot details like this on your own. This brings us to the end of our video on the 9 things you didn't see in The Bad Guys. How many details were you able to spot on your own while watching the movie? Let us know in the comments down below.
Guinea pigs?
Marmalade.